going on over here in this region, right? So when you see a trend exhaustion, right, you've got to understand that basically aggressive sellers are failing, right? So if we just kind of tap into this area, this same exact price action over here, what you can see is you can see huge volume in terms of aggressive sellers, right? We can see that by the delta outlier. So what we see over here is we saw a huge seller, even without reading the numbers. We saw a huge seller over here, and we saw some huge selling over here, and also some huge selling over here. So if we just read some of these numbers, we saw 204 for 44. So that was around this price action over here, right? These aggressive sellers respond to the price action over here. Again, we're below the 10 a.m. Eastern candle's opening price. So now we're seeing this 5-minute rejection. Notice how we have a wick rejection over here. So if we just go up to the 5-minute, right? On the 5-minute, we can very, very clearly see that wick. And so on the ATAS platform gives us that same information, right? I just want to stress it is the same information that you see in every single order flow video, right? It's the same information. And so when we look at this in some more detail, what we can understand is that even though we had a wick, there were tons of aggressive sellers within this region. In fact, we see the sellers drying out over here. So what do I mean by sellers drying out? Sellers drying out means that aggressive sellers are failing. And so if these aggressive sellers are failing, you want to ask yourself, who is in control? So the market participants that are in control are essentially the ones opposite to the aggressors, right? So here we see the aggressors, right? The sellers are being aggressive. In fact, this wick is where the trend exhaustion happened, right? Because if we just play price on again, we saw a move to the upside, and then we saw another move to the upside over here. So the ATAS platform tells us that the trend is ending. And so this is what's interesting. When you see two green candles up here like this, what's happening is the green candle had a ton of aggressive sellers. So it's showing you these sellers have not been rewarded, right? They've not been rewarded because if the sellers were successful, they would have driven price below the key level, right? But we can see a clear rejection off the level. And so when we go into this green candle over here, again, this green candle corresponds to this first breakup over here. So this was 175 for 37. So for those who don't understand how to read order flow and footprint charts, it's the simplest thing ever. What you're looking for is in this case, the bid is the left-hand number always, and the ask is the right-hand number. Now you can see a massive difference here between the bid and the ask. We see a negative delta, a red delta, which means that there's more aggressive sellers than aggressive buyers. Now, let me ask you a question. If these aggressive sellers were successful, what would they have done? They would have broken below the zone, right? Or they would have driven price down, right? You see aggressive sellers in an overall upwards candle direction, right? The candle's bullish, right? The candle has gone higher with sellers. So it's showing you that these sellers aren't successful. And if sellers are not successful, this is what shows you the true kind of exhaustion of a trend, right? So the exhaustion of a bearish trend comes down to the exhaustion of sellers. And that's exactly what we see over here.